going? Welcome back to the gutter, the Grindhouse gutter. And boy, Smoke, you're keeping up your track record of 1974. I think this is
Oh shit.
the third month in a row that it's been 1974. And then if you go back one step further, Ilsa She-Wolf of the SS was shot in 74 but came out in 75. So we're going to call it 4 months in a row that you've got the 1974 thing going.
Yeah, that's totally. I didn't even think about. We just talked about this not too long ago,
Yeah.
and I totally forgot about it. That I didn't even think about this movie being 1974 as well. So yeah, now it seems like a concerted effort, but it's really not.
Once again, we trip and fall into something totally
Yeah,
not planned. But yeah, we're talking about Massacre Mafia Style from 1974, and boy, I tell you what, this is right up there with. It's got to be one of the more grindhousey movies that we have watched here in the gutter.
yeah, definitely. It's well. First of all, I might as well. This is the first time I saw it, and I've known about it since. Well, I mean, I brought this prop here. I don't know, and you have to tell me if it's in the frame or not because the camera's so small that I'm looking at.
Yeah, we can
Can
see
you
it.
see that?
Yeah,
It's the laser disc for the Italian cannibal film "Make Them Die Slowly," aka Cannibal Ferox from Umberto Lenzi. But this was put out by Grindhouse Releasing in about 1998, I believe it was, which is when I ordered it from Blackest Heart Media. And in here, I didn't know. I don't even know if it's on the special features as it listed on there. But when you're watching the special features, this trailer comes on, and you're like, first it didn't have the name up. It just starts, and you're like, "What the hell is this?" And it's of course the trailer that I showed y'all for it, where it's Duke Mitchell and the other guy, this other guy in the movies, mafia guys, just going around this building, massacring people in the building. And that was the trailer. I'm like, what the hell is this movie? It is Massacre Mafia Style. And it took me this long to finally get around to watching it. So I'd never even heard of it before 1998 when I saw it on this Laserdisc. So,
yeah. What is
well,
that
how about
song?
y'all?
What is that? No, I've never seen it until
Yeah,
now. But like, what was that song that's playing like Tika Tika
ticketay, ticketay,
Hey
ticket.
or something?
My heart always goes ticket.
It's like this
Whatever it
never-ending song as they're just
is.
going through this building, just massacring people left and right.
Yeah, and it was like it was hilarious to me this trailer. I mean, watching it back then is because they just made this one guy get on the ground and do like the sign of the cross before they shoot him, right, or
Yeah,
whatever. I mean, that sounds terrible, right? But it's funny in the context of this
yeah,
of the
yeah.
movie and the trailer. Also, I didn't realize until we sat down and watched it for Grindhouse Gutter that that trailer was basically just the first couple of minutes of the movie itself,
Oh yeah, yeah.
unedited.
Straight up, like yeah, yeah. You're right. Almost entirely unedited. It's just here's the first
Yeah,
2 minutes. Now throw up the logo, and that logo, by the way, if you check out the poster, it looks almost exactly like, uh, or maybe not exactly like, but it's very reminiscent of the Godfather ish looking.
yeah. The multiple titles the movie went under. Massacre Mafia Style, I think, for me is the best title. Like we had said, if I ever had come across this movie, which I didn't come across it under the Massacre Mafia style title, but maybe I would have saw it on the video store shelf under the Like Father Like Son title,
Hmm.
which is I think the more well known title prior to this prior to the Grindhouse release of it. But I probably might not have batted an eye at a movie called Like Father Like Son, but I definitely would have rented Massacre Mafia Style if I'd seen that title sitting on the shelf. So I never did see it. If they did have it, it was hidden, and I never found it in the video stores in my hometown back in the day. But another third title that it went under was The Executioner.
Yeah, one thing that I did see is apparently at some point in the 80s, it did get a VHS release by Video Gems, but then it
Hmm.
just kind of went away and kind of got a second life later on when Grindhouse Releasing re-released it like a digitally restored version of it on
Yeah,
Blu-ray back about 9 years ago.
and it's probably worth mentioning here because I might forget it by the time we get to the end of this. But Duke Mitchell's the main guy behind all this. He directed it, wrote it, starred in it, did the music for it. Also related, he was a crooner, kind of. He was friends with Frank Sinatra, and he did that kind of Vegas style crooner singing. So he was the major primary driving force for this movie. But he did another movie called Gone with the Pope shortly after this that never saw a release back then. It was kind of lost for a while until I think the guys at Grindhouse Releasing somehow came across that movie and got it kind of finished it basically as far as well, it's done shooting it, but they finished editing it or whatever they needed to do to release it, and that came out some years after this did. I forget what year now, but a few years I guess after they had released their DVD or Blu-ray whatever version of Massacre Mafia Style. So that one I have not seen yet, but I've seen the trailer for it, and that's another one that will show up at some point. I guess it won't show up on Grindhouse Gutter technically because it was never really released back then. So at some point though, it'll show up on one of the episodes.
Yeah, and this is totally a Duke Mitchell deal because not only did he direct it, he wrote it and starred in it, he also
Mm.
self-financed it.
Yeah,
And I think I'd read somewhere where they used a lot of the locations where he just kind of hung out, like the
yeah,
clubs and places, restaurants and places like that. They just let him shoot. So it's
yeah,
totally Duke Mitchell up and down.
yeah. And that self financing pretty much came from, like I mentioned earlier, his crooner, crooning, singing in clubs and things in LA and Las Vegas.
That all that being said was someone that probably didn't have a lot of experience, although he was an entertainer, probably didn't have a lot
Hmm.
of experience making movies, writing movies, starring in movies, all that kind of stuff. I think although it's, it's not the best written movie, it
Hmm.
there's a story here that you can follow,
Yeah,
right? Something that, kind of gets from point A to point B to point C and, has an interesting ending.
yes, yeah, yeah. This movie kind of, even though he's an American, made an American film, but I don't know if you're familiar with an Italian subgenre called polizioteschi, which is basically crime drama or crime action, mafia, Italian made mafia movies and police procedural type things. It's a big thing over there, or it was coming up around the same time as like giallos and that type of thing. So it was his own subgenre though, and this kind of plays off more to me like an Italian polizioteschi movie rather than a typical American mafia film.
I had seen something where like apparently that was really popular. That type of movie was really popular at the time in other countries, like in Italy, some
Yeah.
other places, but not so much here. Like in the U.S. for whatever reason, it never really took off other than say the Godfather movies.
Yeah, yeah, the major ones yeah, mafia movies are always big budget Hollywood type things, generally speaking, for the most part. Yeah, it didn't take off as a low budget, subgenre in the America so much. I mean, there's a few, I guess, but not like it was in Italy.
Donnie, I'm assuming this is the first time you ever watched it. What were your thoughts about this one?
And this movie was nuts. Like, I mean, like you guys mentioned at the beginning, it was just. I mean, the trailer was the very start of the movie. It was just like I don't know. So there's a scene. I guess. Well, it's definitely near the beginning where he asks. They're both sitting there and they I forget. I think it's Mimi.
Yeah.
He's out of bullets, and he's like, "How many?" He's like, "How many do you have left?" He's like, "I got two." He's like, "Yeah, put them in him."
Yeah.
Like just bam, bam,
Yeah.
he just shoots him.
Oh yeah, it's wacky. The acting, and probably just because they're not extremely experienced actors, and you're not, it's not a professional crew, so to speak. So like you get some stuff that feels kind of like real life, like the way they would just talk to one another and the way certain people would interact with one another. You can tell like it felt more natural than just acting to me. So I think that kind of gives it a little bit more of a genuine quality. But then there are other times where it's just some shitty acting, some really shitty acting, but I think you get a fine, entertaining mix of both here, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, and you get plenty of Massacre Mafia style.
Yeah, well, it lives up to its name. It lives up to its
Yeah.
name. It's very I wouldn't say it's over the top gory like,
Yeah,
Cannibal Holocaust or something like that.
nah, nah.
You get plenty of blood squibs, blood, you get plenty of violence. Uh
Although I would have, I guess the very first kind of mafia execution that you do see, I wish there was more of those type of um, kind of cut
Moments.
scenes and
Yeah,
moments. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Like I would have liked to see a little bit more creativity, but it's 1974, and
Well, did y'all catch the one killing when the blood squib that was it was supposed to be a blood squib or whatever, but it was like he had a thing on his head and it shot him in the head and it just went. It was like a red, like it just went up like that,
yeah, yeah. That it made him look like
like
the
an
Red
airbag
Rooster.
underneath something. That was the one effect that was like definitely takes you out of the movie for real. It's like
Oh
it's
yeah,
supposed to be a headshot, and it's like instead of doing an actual blood-filled condom blood squib, it was like they just put a piece of a latex whatever on his head with an airbag under it that just made it pop up. I don't know. It just didn't work. That was the one part of the blood of the gore scene that didn't just didn't work. It was
I don't think the editing in this helped either.
Oh
Like
yeah.
pretty choppy, shitty editing in some parts.
Yeah, I don't know. He didn't edit it. He did everything else just about except I forget who the guy's name was that edited it, but yeah, he didn't do that.
Probably just some dude named Charlie that he found on the back of the, on the back of the truck or something. I don't know, but I mean, considering all the circumstances of like, that you can clearly tell this isn't like a professional outfit, I still think you get a pretty entertaining, cohesive movie out of it
Hmm.
that kind of uh has a, once again, we don't go into spoilers here. It kind of has a little bit of a wow, okay, ending to it. Like I'll leave
Yeah.
it there. Like, all right, well, that's not quite what I expected.
Also,
And
speaking
then
of not expecting things, well, you kind of maybe expect it. I mean, we're not giving away too many spoilers here on this, but let's just say the funeral scene.
yeah, oh yeah, that was
Oh,
pretty good. That was
yeah.
Yeah.
That's that.
actually I kind of did see that coming.
Yeah, I mean,
When
I
it got
saw,
pointed, I'm like, that's
yeah,
gonna happen, isn't it? That's gonna happen.
yeah,
And then it
yeah,
happened.
yeah, yeah,
That was pretty good. But yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it. We'll leave it there because like now we'll start getting into the spoiler territory, and I think
yeah,
this is one that should get on Cult Corner or some other way on the podcast or something, so we can take a little bit of a deeper dive into it because it's pretty interesting.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, yeah, I definitely got some more stuff, and we'll do it when we do that about Duke Mitchell. Some interesting tidbits about his, some other things he did before this and whatnot. So, but yeah, we'll leave that for a deeper dive on the show.
well, what we do here on the Grindhouse Gutter Smoke is we let you decide what the final ratings are. You give a Grindhouse Gutter rating, which is 0 through 10. Basically, the best way to describe it is what makes it a good Grindhouse flick, 0 through 10, and then you're going to give your star rating. But here we don't do simply stars. Depending on the genre of movie that we're watching, we have a different uh, star system for each. And on this one, since we're calling this more of an action flick, you're going to be giving out choppas. So
Yeah,
first, and that's a 0 through 5, like a star rating. So first, we'll let you do the gutter rating.
yeah. Got a rating on this one's pretty good because it's got typical mafia style violence. In other words, shootouts and that type of thing, and blood squibs. Uh, Also, like I said, without giving anything away, there's a let's just say there's some explosions too, involving aftermath of blood and and things of that nature. So it's got a decent amount of. I mean, like you said, it definitely lives up to the title of the movie. There's a lot of Massacre Mafia style going on here. There's also the poster. Anybody who sees the poster will see. Well, there's a few different posters out, but the one main one that I think it's under the Like Father Like Son as well as the Massacre Mafia style title is a drawing, and it's a typical grindhouse posters of the time were very cheap and fast, and they a white background, black lettering, maybe a little bit of red or whatever in there. You think Blood Feast or 2000 Maniacs, that type of very simple artwork, right? Well, the one for this one was a drawn, black not stick figure, but hand drawn black outline of people's bodies, right? Really, it was one body hanging on a meat hook, and then it was kind of like replicated about 5 or 6 times, where it's this look. It looked like multiple bodies. It really was one though. But,
Yeah.
so that was a cool poster, and that scene is in the movie.
Yes.
So that's a bonus. Sometimes the posters or VHS covers would be embellished, let's just say, with things
And
that
when you
weren't going to happen in the movie, right?
and when you see that scene happen in the movie, they make you stare at it for a second.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah. It
like,
was pretty
all
cool. I
right,
mean,
we
for
get it.
being,
Move it along. Nope, you're going to look at this. All right. You know,
and
It's
I
like
kind of
20
figured,
seconds.
yeah,
easily.
they linger on it because they were proud of that effect, and it was a cool effect for this being a super low budget movie. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, that and I kind of knew when that scene was coming too because of where they were at that particular time in the movie, and because of that poster being, you just kind of know, oh, okay, this is where that's going to come, and then it did. I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, so you do get a decent amount of violence. I mean, it's not like you said, it's not a bloodbath like Cannibal Holocaust, but it for a mafia movie, it's pretty bloody. It's got another thing that I kind of factor into Grindhouse is dialogue. What's some of the dialogue? Do you get some crazy dialogue in whatever way, whether it's written well and it's crazy, or whether it's just people who are inexperienced? I think that kind of plays both roles here. You get some, funny writing as well as just inexperience and stuff going on. So there's a decent amount of that type of dialogue in here that you kind of laugh at or whatever. So that factors into it and drives the Grindhouse rating up a little bit. Uh, there's a little bit of TNA, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
Not as much as like you're not talking about sexploitation levels or anything. It's not that type of movie, right? But there's a little bit of that in there, so that factors into the Grindhouse score as well a little bit. So I think I'm going to go with let's go with a 7 on the Grindhouse rating.
All right.
Yeah.
So how
So
many choppas do you want to give it? This is 0 through 5, just like a star rating,
yeah,
except little choppas.
yeah. This is entertaining. Like I said it's low budget. I mean, you kind of expect that a lot often with a Grindhouse gutter. This one maybe even more so than some of the other ones because, as we mentioned, it was just Duke Mitchell himself funding the thing through his singing activities, right? And up to a point where he could get the money to make this movie. And it's for that, I think he did a great job, uh, especially not having a whole ton of experience, right? And back in those days, I mean, it was much harder to. I mean, you think about it now, it's fairly easy to come across equipment, digital cameras and things of that nature. It doesn't cost nearly as much. You don't have to develop film. You don't have to edit as far as physical cutting of film and splicing and all that stuff. So, I mean, it's much more technically easier to do a movie now than it was back then, especially, when you didn't have much money. So, yeah, taking those things into account, I think I'm going to go with three and a half. I mean, I enjoyed this one. It's one I hadn't seen before, and you know, I'm gonna go 3.5 on it.
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment of it, and obviously we recommend you go check it out. So what are we going to be watching next month?
Oh yeah, next month. I know I've probably done an inordinate amount of horror movies, but we are going to revisit the horror movie genre again before we get around to kung fu movies because I want to get back around to those as well. And I know I've probably done less of those than any other one at this point. We did a couple of exploitation movies in a row a little while back before the Sucky Summer, uh, and then of course Sucky Summer was all horror. Uh, but I'm going to do a horror before we get back to kung fu, and that horror movie is going to be. It's not going to be 1974. Not this time. We're breaking the streak, I guess.
Ah,
But it's really this movie has a couple of different dates. 72 is one date that's been thrown. I think that's when it was first started filming. Maybe didn't get completed or something. 77, I think, was the date that it finally did get an actual release in Grindhouse theaters and certain other places at the time. But the movie is Last House on Dead End Street. So that's a doozy of one for anybody who knows that movie. Will like rubbing their hands like, oh yes, okay, so a juicy one here. So I don't know if have y'all have seen it before.
no, I mean I've only got the last house on the left stuck in my head, but I
Yeah,
Yeah,
think I've seen this one.
yeah, of
I
course
know
that
for a
is.
fact
Yeah,
I have not.
Yeah.
no, yeah. Last House on the Left, of course, is the movie is the title that it's playing off of. It nothing at all like that though. Really, as far as this movie goes, it's just a whoever's idea it was to call it that, and I don't remember necessarily if it was the director or producers to tie it into Last House on the Left, of course. But yes, totally different kind of movie.
Well,
Well,
that's
I mean, maybe not totally different, but the plot is not like that at all.
well, that's the kind of detail that we'll get into here on the Grindhouse
Yeah,
Gutter next month when we're talking about the last house on Dead End Street, directed by Roger Watkins and written by him and starring him. So you got another Duke
yeah,
Mitchell
yeah,
situation
yeah,
going on here
yes.
without.
And for those who want to watch it, maybe before we do it, it's currently at this time right now, I believe it's up on what Tubi.
Okay.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, those things change month to month, so you might want to go dig around. You never know with those kind of things. But anyways, yeah, there you
Yeah.
go. So that's it for this month's Grindhouse. Stay tuned here on the YouTube channel for Hammer Horror and Order, Video Vortex, and of course, every Monday at 6 p.m. East, we have new episodes of the All American Spookshow podcast that come out. So for Will, Donnie, Tiana, Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We are the All American Spook Show, and we'll talk to you next month here on the Grindhouse.